Welcome to drivenmavens.com. My name is Arvin, and today we are going to talk about the anatomy of the wheel. So let's go. Wheels and tires, to be honest, are probably one of the most difficult things that you could try to master. Anytime you look at a drawing and you look at someone who hasn't quite drawn the wheel correctly, you're going to be able to readily identify it right away. I mean, you'll know exactly when something looks kind of off, or when something doesn't look, or when the tire is not in perspective. People instinctively already know. It's kind of ingrained. Reality is ingrained in people's brain. They know when something is off. They may not know how to correct it, but they're able to see something that is just not quite right. The same thing goes with understanding or making a tire or a wheel look believable and correct. And by that I mean is to really understand how the tire interfaces with the wheel. Now, when I start talking about the anatomy of the wheel, there's a couple of ways that we draw wheels when we're sketching or we're drawing. Now, this one's a little bit more technical because I really want to do sort of a deep dive into the makeup of the wheel and what the parts are and how they relate to each other, because by understanding that, what it helps you to do is that the next time you're drawing a wheel or you're looking at another example, it's hard to remember it, to be honest. It's really hard to kind of look at it and say, oh yeah, I remember what he did, and oh yeah, I got to do this, and you're picking up a book and you're seeing you're seeing the image, and yeah, it looks believable, but if you don't know what's behind it, it's harder for it to kind of stick in your head. My dad used to always tell me when I was studying math, and I hated studying math, but he used to go through all the derivations, and he used to say it's important to know where all these things come from, because if you just start to plug and chug, then you don't really understand it. You're just using a formula and you're plugging away, which was for me at the time was fine by me. But same principle here. The more you know about something, the better off you are, because you're going to be able to use that information. It's going to stick, and the next time you draw something, you'll have that information in the background, in the back of your head, for you to be able to rationalize it and then to replicate it without looking at photo reference at all. Okay, so we're going to start off looking at so that was one way. All right, so the second way is the reason that we go into this kind of detail is that when you start to sketch and you get more and more proficient at sketching, it's good to understand and be able to replicate reality. You've seen videos that I put up there with painting a car in 10 minutes and understanding or being able to look at a picture and try to replicate it to your best of your ability, right? By understanding what the colors, the value composition, and the shapes and so forth, right? Well, as you get better and better at doing that, what you're going to be able to find is that you're going to be able to take, by understanding and replicating something that is real, you're going to be able to blur the lines between reality and creativity, which means to make your images look a little bit more interesting than what you would see in real life. Now, the other reason is that when you start to draw these wheels and tires, it is really difficult to draw these wheels and tires. And for example, I've got 6 ellipses going on here. I mean, heck, man, there's no way, even freehand, I'm going to be able to draw 6 ellipses and get them perfectly, offset every time. Plus, it's a waste of time. So what you do is that you stylize it, which is what I mean that by understanding how to do it properly, the first way, breaking it down, which I use ellipse templates, then when you start to sketch a car and you're sketching things real fast, you're able to use certain parts of the information and kind of cheat it a little bit, but it still gives you the result. So let's go. So the first thing we're going to look at is in this section is that what you see here is we've got the tire, right? We've got a tire wall. Let me switch to my brush here. But I've designated the points. We're taking a cross section basically of this area right here. Okay, so I'm basically taking a plane, okay, and I'm cutting this thing in half. That's basically what I've done. We're taking this and we're cutting this bad boy in half. I did a horrible job of that, but anyway, this is what this is what we're doing here. So that's what these points mean. And as we cut this thing in half, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so if you got your tire, which is going around the perimeter, okay, and then you've got your wheel casting, okay, you know, and basically, you know, if you have all these vertical lines, you know, I don't have to really draw all this stuff in here, but that's what you're gonna basically see inside of this. Okay, that's what you're gonna see on this. You know, this void is what you're going to see on the opposite end right here. Okay, so now you know, for simplicity's sake, I didn't decide to draw any spokes or anything like that, and we want to keep it simple. So we've got a wheel, and then you've just got the dome shape here, a spokeless wheel, and then at the center of it, you just got like a little center cap that fits. It's just a small little bezel that just snaps into the center part of the wheel. Now, if you want to get technical, yeah, you know, they have to be drilled. You know, you're going to have bolts that hold this thing together. And if you wanted to, then, you know, you'd take this, it feels right here, you take that section, and we can, you know, cut away right here to kind of show or indicate that you're going to have a bolt that comes in here and sets, right? But anyway, that's not the whole purpose of this. So we got the center cap, and then of course we've got the tire that comes in on the other side. So this is basically going all the way around. Okay. Now, in a nutshell, when you're looking at wheels, we always talk about understanding how to draw basics, and this is why I was saying that, you know, before in other posts that we had talked about how the brain interprets form and how to not get caught up in too much detail at the beginning, and how important it is to really understand the basics. Alright, so basically when you're looking at the tire, what you are looking at is, I'm going to move this on the side, is a cylinder, right? So that's why I've always emphasized that if you're drawing a cylinder in perspective, this is going to be hard, this is going to be ugly, guys, because I've got a Wacom tablet. Then it's nice when you have a Cintiq this way, but you can draw directly on the screen. This is always a little bit tougher for me, but what we're talking about here is that once you have perspective, when you know your foundation and you know how to draw things in perspective, so we've got your minor and your major axes, this tire is really just, all it is just a cylinder, right? Which is why if you start to master this, this is going to be the bulk of it, okay? Because that'll remove any doubt from the viewer who's looking at your drawing that you've done something correctly, right? You may not have all the details of your tire and your wheel, but at least you know that your perspective is right and it doesn't look odd, okay? So let's go back here. All right. And we are, once again, when we start to look at now the tire section, the tire itself is made up of different surfaces. All right, and when you're trying to determine as far as how many lips we're going to use, and this is basically kind of more of a technical drawing here because we are trying to replicate what you typically see on a tire, not what we typically draw when we're stylizing something. So I've designated these things by different points, and all these points illustrate the surface transition on your tire. So you've got the top of the tire, so you got this slight dome shape at the top. Okay, point A begins the first transition, so you got a little bit of a chamfered edge from points A to point B, and then you got the sidewall of your tire as well, and that's points B to C. Okay. Now points B to C, this often is subject to your interpretation. Okay, this distance that you see sometimes is even removed. We don't even typically draw this. So you can already eliminate 2 ellipses from here if we're just doing a quick sketch, because you end up just capturing this transition. Most of the cases you're just joining this line. Let me just zoom in here. In most cases when you're doing this, you're joining this line and you're going straight off. Now here's the crown of the surface of the tire. And then in other cases, this distance right here is also minimized. Alright? This even gets closer to where you start the transition, or you start the the transition to the actual wheel. Okay? I'm going to zoom back out. Now, we won't get into this. I'll show that in another example on some other post. But this is just for you to understand that when we do quick sketches, we don't draw all these ellipses, because it's very difficult to get 6 ellipses and be able to space them out perfectly. It's very hard to do that. So we go with basically 2 or 3 ellipses and try to execute it that way. All right. So once we get to C to D, all right, we got the transition. This is where the wheel actually starts to come into play. Now this distance that I have here, we'll go here because I've drawn all over this. This distance also is minimized. Okay, usually you only go to something like you're not going to have that much thickness right here. You're basically going to have a small little rim. I mean, that's basically what this is the rim, and it's going to go all the way around. So that distance is basically, right here. Okay. But the section, I've blown it up so you can kind of, see it. I've exaggerated a little bit. Now, here's the funny thing. When I did draw this, I changed it. I didn't like going straight down, and really from points E to what I've done is actually added an extra chamfer here. So in reality, I've added an extra ellipse. So this should really read, or this should be E right here, and this should be F, and then this becomes G. But anyway, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, this is just to show you I added a little bit of section here because I didn't want to go straight back. But if I had done it that way, this would be removed, and this ellipse right here would coincide with the top of the or just the bottom edge of the rim. Okay. All right, and then we go to the at point F. You've got now your center cap, and you got a slight gap because this cap has to now fit inside, and then you have your ellipse that shows that, right? Now you can do the same thing here on the front view. And I've always done actually a front view first, and then I go to the isometric view, because front views are relatively easy. You can establish how many circles you're going to use to describe the shape of your tire, and then from that you draw your perspective or your isometric view. Okay, so all in all, the takeaway for you to understand with this when you're working with this is to understand that if you really want things to stick, start to look at section format. Start to understand how do these parts, the parts that I'm looking at interface with each other, and can I draw it? I mean, this really helps you to expand your mind, and once you understand how things work and how they work together, how they fit together, it really helps you with your analytical thinking, and it also helps you with making sure that things stick. That you're not constantly trying to look at photo references, but you're able to create on your own without having to look at photo references. So anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this post. Be sure to read the article that's on the website. There's some other stuff that I think I probably include in there. I don't know. It's a pretty decent read. And anyway, that's this concludes this post, and hope to see you here again next time on drivenmavens.com.